In my humble yet arrogant enough to comment on the matter opinion as a non-speedrunner, I find most speedruns to be fascinating yet overall disinteresting to watch completely. Most times it's just some guy who looks like he wants to break some part of his house due to frustration, staring at a monitor like he's on the bomb removal squad, trying hundreds of times to make one stupid fucking jump. But what I do find entertaining is insane shit, and what does a game like Dragon Quest, an over 35-year-old role-playing game that most people hear and see and think, oh, it's like the most traditional RPG ever made, and therefore I think it sucks ass, have to show for itself. Well, this game happens to put the old ape brain to an insane task that requires over 20 minutes of perfect input, memorization, and even a few frame-precise confirmations. Also, the fact that a community has whittled an RPG down to 23 minutes, a genre that usually takes longer than that, is another achievement. And the amazing part is that it's not through the use of glitches or skipping huge chunks of the game. No, it's through becoming the almighty man and trudging over hills, blasting metal enemies, and putting this clod to bed as you hurt him very much. It's all programmed, and it's entirely consistent. You just need the script. So this fledgling series of mine is not concerned with the progression of records or the development of strategies. I just want to make an overly articulate, wordy, sturdy breakdown of all the requirements to obtain the world record in a game. For Dragon Quest 1, you need a gigantic, I'll underscore it, brain. Again, I know I'm not the sharpest light bulb in the bulb holding device, but I have the ability to put a good amount of details to memory. But this game is a gauntlet of inputs that you need to manipulate perfectly. Let's introduce the main topic at hand, RNG manipulation. This concept is very popular to discuss when discussing game speed discussions. To make a dissertation deliberating on how this works in great detail would definitely prove my dullness and dumbness, but I'll try to give you the layman's way of describing this. Random number generation is the easiest thing to blame when we fail in a game because we can always rely on the concept that randomness screwed us over. It means the machine did something to us that we don't like because it has to make up outcomes semi-randomly. But sometimes we find ways to make those random events a fixed constant. By the way, whoever does this RNG manipulation hunting must be the greatest and most patient people that exist because they essentially test thousands of permutations of events to get things down to a perfect science. Meanwhile, I sit here blasting music into both of my ears as I type without looking. We all have different skills, I suppose, but grand patience is not one of mine, which means I probably wouldn't make a good Dragon Quest 1 speedrunner. But as this is the second time I'm using this speedrunning format to make a video, I feel like I want to tighten up the ship so that I may deliver information to you grand audience members more concisely. Firstly, I'll give a brief overview of how the game is normally played to give a more stark contrast to how the speedrun implements skill sets to be possible. Following that, I'm going to go over the world record run for the game in question, this week of course Dragon Quest or Dragon Warrior 1 for the NES. We'll talk all about the interesting details on the way, and then after the run is finished, I'll have a final little discussion about the specific skills and abilities you would need to replicate the record. That's why it's called World Record Requirements. Oh. Dragon Quest is what one could define as the earliest JRPG, taking inspiration from Western RPGs such as Ultima Wizardry and of course Dungeons & Dragons. The game is simple in nature. Every fight is a strict 1v1 with only like 10 different items to help improve your power and defense. A smattering of spells such as sleep, hurt more, hurt most, hurt mostest, and lamp. You gain experience points as you traverse across lands looking for items necessary to face the evil dragon lord who lords across the starting area river. Not sure why he doesn't fly over and take a shit on the king's face, but hey, it gives us time to figure out heaps of cryptic nonsense and tedious grinding to go over and slap some sense into him. And by that I mean kill him. Beyond grinding to get more powerful without the rainbow drop and the staff of rain, you can't approach the Dragon Lord's castle, strong as shit or not. Not quite sure why we can't just build a bridge, maybe he just comes out and kills all the bridge makers. All I'm trying to make clear is that the game is pretty long, pretty confusing, and mostly about grinding to get stronger. We can thus move on to the speedrun. So, from the top, you boot up the game, hit a title screen, start slapping your forehead to get the blood running because as soon as you start, it's not stopping. Actually hurt my head doing that. Me ape. You choose a file and get to input your name. And for the context of this run, you literally have no choice. You have to pick as your name. If anyone has a better suggestion on how to vocally pronounce one exclamation point, please let me know. But since this game determines the level up potency based on your name, the most ideal choice is just one exclamation point. So the journey of begins in the throne room of the king. Your quest, go kill the dragon man of course, but in order to reach him you need to go collect those items again. Welcome to the land of Aleph Guard, the greenest ass place you'll ever see. This game world isn't gigantic, but it's absolutely ball full with grass, mountains, and trees, and also some of the least tackleable enemies in the genre. For example, are you level 1? You're only good enough to kill slimes, you cock. Level 2? You're only good enough to kill red slimes, you slime. Level 30 being max might give you an idea of how the progression goes here. Normally, you'll grind in an area, buy the equipment that's available, and then traverse to the next region. And in general, the climb is slow going, save for the fact that the encounter rate is ridiculous. Sometimes walking 5 squares to a town is an arduous process. But for the speedrun, there is no such thing as giving a shit. It's a walk simulator. You're going to start by getting all the chests in the room, using the door and stairs button to open the door and walk on the stairs, and then contrary to sanity, you go back up the stairs and turn the game off. This is only non-contrary if you realize you don't want to play a game in 2022 that requires a stairs and door button. But we do, so the game comes back on, you come right back in and make the first casual 2-frame window input. Go downstairs, confirm the woman is walking the correct path to indicate that you've done this correctly. You know, regular gaming shit. Essentially, there is no way to buffer the input on menus, and there's no audio or visual cues. So grab the force and make a correct guess. This is only necessary like 10 times. Leave the castle, walk across the entire planet without getting hit once by making the most obnoxiously calculated journey available, getting into combat with the highest experience enemy on the overworld that happens to be very hard to hit or kill and find, hit the B button several times, delay in the correct spots, guarantee the critical hit, do it 2 more times, get up to level 7 in order to get the sleep spell, get killed, and we're through the very beginning of the game. Excuse me, my brain has come out of my ass as I try to ponder this method, both working and my attempting of it. So, after that point, we're in need of some money, so do as you do best and walk across the world in the other direction, more like a tourist than a hero, because nothing's going to attack you, and find the enemy that gives the most gold in the game. Now, I'll elaborate more on the combat this time. The game has critical hits that actually do more than jack dick all nothing. You can force this to happen, just as you force there to be no encounters. More RNG manipulation lets you firstly put this total chat of a golem to sleep, where through more force manipulation lets you wail on him without ever waking up. Enemies have a fairly high resistance to being put to sleep, and then a fairly high chance to wake up from sleeping. So yeah, keep following the script. A few delays, perfect inputs, and waiting around, and crit you can buy shit. All you need is keys to beat the game and to obtain this item that returns you to the starting castle faster. Now it's time to walk to a lot of various venues and pick up the objects needed to break into the Dragon Lord's castle and tuck him into bed. Another boon to this run is that you can respawn in the starting castle if you die, so intentional death warps back to the starting location are common. This is an absolute death march as you run over mountains, ignore everything that could easily kill you, and when you get into combat, it's a sleep spell and a few punches in order to kill anything. You go to this hellhole, grab the best armor in the game, go to this swamp-ass swamp, grab the token, come here to get the staff, get the raindrop, and through it all, you need to perform perfect actions to survive. Finally, walk into more walls, into the dark, push against sea, mountains, and hills, and reach the Dragon Lord's castle. Still with your bare hands. Wander through the final dungeon, grab Erdrick's sword, the best weapon in the game, and find the final floor and fight the final boss. Manipulate the first form so that he doesn't do shit all, and then we can put his dumbass to sleep and hurt his poor sleeping body. With a paltry 1 in 96 chance of this happening every turn, pump every drop of your MP into him, and through an absolute gauntlet of manipulation where he just sleeps for fucking years, you win the game. I feel like speedrunning this game would be a good Mensa test. It's 23 minutes long, and you can't forget a single step. Even if you write down the directions, can you read them in such real time? You can't pause. The game is a stream of inputs, and either you jettison yourself off the metaphorical train or you keep on it until you reach the end. So the requirement is either you can read at the speed of light or you have such an immense memory of the game. Beyond that, physically, you need to very commonly perform 2-frame window inputs to make sure your RNG remains consistent. That's something that most speedrunners don't like having to do in more active games, let alone in an RPG. Plus, for the absolute world record, a little interesting fact is that you must be playing on the correct version. There's both PRG 0 and 1, with PRG 0 being optimal. This is only because the combat text reads, "Thy hits decreased" instead of "Thy hit points decreased by." This saves an absurdly small amount of time, but it does save time. This record is ridiculous. I have no trouble believing that this run sounds atrociously unfun to perform, as for nearly half an hour you're on the brain gauntlet, thinking about how many times you have to bump into a wall, which tree to stop at, how long to pause, watching flashes, counting footsteps, listening to your mother say that you've played this game far too many fucking times. Quiet, mother, I'm playing Dragon Quest. It's pretty awesome to talk about though, and my respect for the runners and the finders of all these tricks is gigantic. There's also the other category, the 100% speedrun, which doesn't involve the same manipulation tricks, otherwise known as playing the game. It's not the same, actually quite lame. Insurance claim. The video is now over.